So in that Down with Disease, you hear that. You hear a lot of changes. And about the jam is like there's a really nice ambient jam. Last 3 or 4 minutes are this really strong uh, ambient jam, and it's they're all Page, Mike, Trey, and Phish. They're all utilizing effects. I forget what Fishman's doing. Maybe just cymbals, or he might have jumped on his Marina, but it's a pretty cool 3 or 4 minutes. Again, sort of leaning into the darker side, if you will. But great jam. Going back to Manchester. The first inclinations I heard that this tour was going to be different was the Tweezer Sandwich, specifically from night three, the Sunday night show from Manchester, the Tweezer, Mercury, Tweezer, Pillow Jets, Tweezer. I just knew something. That sequence was great. The jams were great. And that's when I thought, maybe this tour will be different. Like I could hear something different in that sequence. And I'm not a big fan of these Tweezer sandwiches, right? These Sammys, Tweezer Sammys. I do like the one from 7th of May '94. That was a big one, and some of the older ones I enjoy a little bit more probably. But this one works. This one works really well. And I've been a big fan of Mercury, the song Mercury, going back to 2015. So this is that song's 10th anniversary this summer, and a pretty cool jam coming out of that one as well. So yeah, it was like a throwback to 2015 with that. Um, Probably one of the bigger jams that a lot of people talked about this summer was the 24th June Pittsburgh. What's going through your mind? I mean, that was so on top of all the great music we heard in Manchester. The second night they're in Pittsburgh and they play an amazing show. I already mentioned the Dog Stole Things. That's on my playlist. That's from the first set. And then the second set they open with You Enjoy Myself into it's 42 or 44 minutes. What's going through your mind? It's on YouTube, so if you want to check it out, definitely check it out. But some really great jamming. And I want to say the latter 20 minutes is just them at their most open and free. When you see the YouTube video, you can see Trey's, he's messing around with effects, and it's almost like they're not even playing their instruments, right? Like they're just creating these sounds. They're sculpting sounds. They're artists throwing, painting, right? They're using sounds as a medium to paint pictures, if you will. I mean, that's just one perspective. But anyway, it's great music, right? It's again, it's dark. It's definitely dissonant, and it works well. And Fishman is literally propelling the whole jam the whole time. I mean, you can see him. He's just in a lot of great jams this summer. It's Fishman. He's sort of the nexus. He's the one that's moving the ball forward, if you will. And he's done a great job this summer. But definitely check that one out. That's just a. If I had to pick one jam, that probably would be it. I mean, it's that amazing. Going back to SPAC, the Chalk Dust. I really enjoyed the Beneath the Sea of Stars that came out of Chalk Dust. Chalk Dust was raging, very extended and high energy. But the Beneath the Sea of Stars, I've always enjoyed that tune. Again, going back to Ghost of the Forest, I love the debut version in Portland. Even part three, Phish hasn't done part three ever, but I would love to hear them do that. They might do that at a special gig. But it's great tune, and I enjoyed the spec version because it was sort of like the release from the big Chalk Dust tension, if you will, right? That jam was just raging, and it just as a listener, it takes a lot to get through sometimes. So it's nice to get that release of Beneath the Sea of Stars, and again, we lost Tony a couple years ago, and I love that the Ghost of Forest trio with Trey, Tony Marcellus, and Fishman, very unique. So I think of Tony as well. He helped create that song, and he was a big part of those Ghost of the Forest sessions and tour. But it's just a great tune. It's, I even saw a comment online. Someone said that they didn't like the song, that they should get rid of it. And I mean, I think it's a great little ambient, piece. It definitely is appropriate at times. Okay, so the next song on my playlist, you guys, is The Golden Age. and that one was from 27 June from Austin, Texas. And that one was kind of interesting. When I first listened to it, I was just, I mean, I've enjoyed Golden Age going back to fall 2013. They played some incredible versions of Golden Age on that tour. It's a next level tour. Um, and I don't know if they'll ever reach that level of peakness that they hit on that tour with that song. But this version is pretty good. Again, Trey plays some nice stuff. And then essentially the jam becomes its own thing, right? They do sort of the standard Golden Age jam and they funk it out or whatnot, but then the jam evolves, and that's where it gets pretty cool. And then they bring it back to Golden Age, and that's when like that's when you can tell. And this happened a lot on this tour where they definitely let jams evolve, and it's cool when they bring it back and they reprise the main theme or whatnot, because oftentimes they're in a completely different key or time signature or whatever. So it's sort of like a re-entry. So it's always fun to hear that, and that happened here on this Golden Age. Another highlight for me was the Sense and Subtle Sounds from Chicago on July 20th. And, just like my channel name, Colors in the Void, I've always enjoyed this song, and this was a great version from this summer. I love Fishman's drumming in this jam. I mean, again, he leads the jam. It's almost like he's leaning back to that 2.0 era and his playing on this version. But it's a really nice sort of spacey version. Nice segue into twist. And then on the very last show, the tour of this leg one, the 27th of July was the Tweezer Reprise show, in that they played a bunch of versions of Tweezer Reprise in and out of both sets. But my favorite version was the version that came out of Golden Age in the second set. And that one had a lot of out-of-the-box improv, again, just like all these versions that I'm talking about today. Really out of the box, just just them sort of putting an exclamation point on the end, the tour ending, like ending the tour with this another exploratory jam. It's just like them saying, "Look, this is who we are." I mean, as fans, we love it. That was definitely cool. And again, going back to Charleston, I mean, the Soul Planet from July 12th. It's only 12 minutes, right? I know they've played long versions, but it was another rager. Just a raging, just this raging bull of a jam. So definitely check that one out. And because I do set up these playlists, like again, like a set list, if you will. I have my playlist ending with the No Man's Land from SPAC Night 2, because it ended, I think it ended the first set, but it's got, it's a nice little rager. I enjoyed that. And then for my encore guys, I had, and again, my playlist is pretty Charleston centric in terms of there were a lot of versions between, the most versions on my playlist were from Charleston and Manchester. So those are probably my two favorite shows, two favorite runs, if you will. But I do have the Carolina, because I love their a cappella stuff, and it's even more poignant when they're singing that in Charleston or North Carolina. So I love that song, and I love their a cappella stuff. And then I have my encore as the "You Enjoy Myself" from the 16th of July, and that was, I believe, yes, that's my only pick from Man in Philadelphia. They played the Man Sand, the 42-minute version of Sand, which is also on YouTube. Check that out. But that one didn't really do much for me. I mean, I love Sand. I have my favorite versions as well across the different eras of Phish. But this version, I mean, it didn't do much for me. Not as much as What's Going Through Your Mind did for me. But I do enjoy the You Enjoy Myself, because it was in the encore slot, and it's a pretty good rager, right? Trey rages his solo section, and they do another jam reprise after, they do the, so I guess the new format for You Enjoy Myself is, Trey plays his solo, Mike does his bass solo, they do a vocal jam, and then they come back into it. They do a second jam. So it's always kind of cool. So that's how I ended my set list with that one. But yeah, overall a great tour. I mean, I think a lot of the highlights that I covered, probably a lot of fans out there enjoy those versions. The fun thing for me this summer tour was just being able to get back into listening to them and enjoying them. Maybe not taking them for granted as much, and it was kind of a throwback. You know, here we are in 2025. It's an interesting year from a Phish history perspective. 30th anniversary of fall 1995, and I'll talk about October 95, November 95, and then the hollow December 1995. Both the early December through mid December run of shows, which are legendary. I think the whole tour is legendary, and then including the New Year's Eve show that ranks super high, December 31st, 1995. So we'll talk about those months of Phish coming up. We'll also talk about Phish's next vinyl release, Undermine, which comes out in early to mid-November. I'm excited for that release because I do collect Phish vinyl, and this was the last studio record. So going back to when they sort of rejuvenated their vinyl catalog with the 2012 Black Friday RSD Junta, right, the deluxe Junta, and then for a few years after, Phish released an album on Record Store Day, and coincidentally, that's sort of when I got back into collecting vinyl, was back in 2012, probably spearheaded by Phish, right? I mean, the Junta came out, and I just sort of jumped on it, and I've been collecting vinyl since then. Ebbing and flowing, right? So anyway, I'm excited about Undermine. I love that album. It's a great album, and I didn't know that Maggie's Revenge, the track Maggie's Revenge, came from the 47-minute Headphones Jam, and I have that version. I have the Headphones Jam on my hard drive, and I guess there is the track called Tiny, Tiny, that will be a part of this release. It has never been released before, right? It's not going to be on side D, but that Headphones Jam is pretty cool. It definitely goes through, and I first heard some of it on one of the From the Archives. It might have been the Coventry From the Archives. Kevin Shapiro, the Phish archivist, plays something off Trample's. I forget it's a Tom and Trey solo album of just demos, and I think it's like Tom laughing. Anyway, on the next track, I believe it's an excerpt from the Headphones Jam, and then Phish finally, released it as a download, so it is available on Live Phish if you want to hear it. I'll have to listen to Maggie's Revenge and try to pinpoint exactly where it is in that jam, the longer jam. But again, I'm a big fan of 2.0. I feel like they could have kept going. Obviously Mike wanted them to keep going, but I just love their sound. I love the sound that they had in 2.0, and specifically 2003 and 2004. They had some great jams. Okay, guys, so that's just sort of a glimpse of what's coming up in the future, and I hope you enjoyed this episode, this review of summer 2025 leg one between the 20th of June and the 27th of July. Again, a great tour. I felt like it was a special tour. I mean, when they're elevating their game, and it was sort of akin back to summer and fall of 2021. I mean, I think when you play well, when you're Phish, you do have peaks and valleys, and some peaks are taller than others, and so we hadn't had a real tall peak since 2021, but this year was different. They brought something special to their fans, and to their legacy. So thanks again, and I look forward to seeing more of you. Please like and subscribe, and welcome to Colors in the Void. Thanks. Have a great day.